Sometimes life will knock you flat on your back. You had plans, you had dreams, you had momentum, and then out of nowhere, the wind got knocked out of you. You lost the job, the deal fell through, the relationship ended, the door slammed shut in your face, and the enemy whispers it's over. You failed. You'll never recover. But hear me, what the enemy calls a setback, God calls a setup. You might feel like you've been pushed back, but you've only been pushed back far enough for God to launch you forward. Sometimes he's got to pull you back like an arrow so he can send you flying into places you couldn't reach on your own. Don't curse this season. Don't despise this pause. Don't misinterpret this delay, because this is not the end of your story. This is the loading stage before your breakthrough. The very thing that feels like it's holding you down is the thing God is using to lift you higher. Trust him, because this setback that's nothing but a setup for your greatest breakthrough yet. Delay are not denials. God works in the waiting. Your pushback positions you for greater impact. Broken plans can birth bigger purposes. Faith turns obstacles into opportunities. Breakthrough always follows the breaking point. Delays have a way of making us feel forgotten. You pray, you plan, you prepare, and yet the answer doesn't come when you expect it. The door doesn't open on your timeline. The opportunity you thought was around the corner seems to vanish into the distance. And in those moments, it's tempting to believe the lie that delay means denial, that because it hasn't happened yet, it never will. But delay is not denial. Delay is God's way of rearranging things in your favor, protecting you from what you cannot see and preparing you for what you are not yet ready to carry. If you think about the greatest breakthroughs in history, they rarely happened overnight. There was always a waiting season. Joseph dreamed of greatness as a young man, but years passed before he saw that dream fulfilled. He faced betrayal, slavery, false accusation, and prison, but none of those delays canceled his destiny. They simply prepared him for the weight of leadership he would one day carry. If Joseph had reached the palace too soon, without the maturity forged in the delay, he would not have been able to sustain it. The delay was part of the process. We live in a culture obsessed with immediacy. We want quick results, fast answers, and instant gratification. But destiny does not work on our deadlines. God's timing is different from ours because he sees the whole picture. What looks like a delay to you may actually be divine timing. What looks like stagnation may be protection. Sometimes God withholds the very thing you're praying for because he knows that if he gave it to you too early, it would crush you instead of bless you. Think about a child asking for the keys to drive a car. The request may be genuine, the desire may be real, but the timing is wrong. To give it prematurely would be dangerous. The delay doesn't mean the parent is denying the child the privilege of driving. It means the parent is wise enough to wait until the child is mature enough. The same is true with God. Some of the things you're praying for are good, but he's delaying them because he loves you too much to let you mishandle them. Delays also build strength. Waiting seasons are like training grounds for your faith and character. If everything you asked for came instantly, you would never learn perseverance, discipline, or trust. You would treat God like a vending machine instead of a father. But when you have to wait, when you have to hold on to a promise without seeing it immediately fulfilled, your faith muscles are stretched and strengthened. You learn to stand on his word rather than your emotions. You learn to trust his character rather than your calendar. Sometimes delay is not even about you, it's about others. God may be aligning people, opportunities, and circumstances behind the scenes to create the perfect conditions for your breakthrough. While you're frustrated by the waiting, he's orchestrating connections that you couldn't have arranged on your own. By the time the door finally opens, you'll realize that the timing was perfect all along. What you thought was wasted time was actually preparation time. Delays can also expose what you're truly made of. It's easy to worship God when the answer comes quickly. But can you worship when it feels like heaven is silent? Can you stay faithful when your prayers seem unanswered? Delay tests your motive. Are you following God for what he gives you or for who he is? The waiting reveals whether your faith is transactional or relational. If you can remain faithful during the delay, you prove that your devotion is genuine. One of the dangers of delay is discouragement. The enemy loves to whisper lies in the waiting. He'll tell you if it hasn't happened yet, it's never going to happen. He'll try to convince you that God has forgotten you, that your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, that everyone else is moving forward while you're stuck. But you cannot allow delay to distort your perspective. You have to remind yourself that God's silence does not mean his absence, and his delay does not mean his denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. Think of a seed buried in the ground. You water it, you tend to it, and for a long time nothing seems to be happening. The soil looks the same day after day, but beneath the surface roots are forming. The seed is preparing for the moment it will break through. If you judge the process by what you saw above ground, you'd assume nothing was happening. But the unseen growth is just as important as the visible growth. That's how God works in seasons of delay. He's building roots in you so that when you finally sprout, you will not be uprooted by the winds of adversity. Another reason delays are not denials is because God often uses them to reroute you towards something better. Sometimes what you think you want isn't what you truly need. You may be asking for something small when God has something bigger in mind. If he allowed your original plan to succeed too soon, you'd settle for less than his best. The delay gives him time to close the wrong doors and open the right ones, even if you don't understand it in the moment. Later you'll look back and thank him for the no that was really a not yet or a something better. Delays also teach gratitude. When you finally receive what you've been waiting for, you'll appreciate it in a way you never would have if it had come easily. The struggle makes the success sweeter. The waiting makes the blessing more meaningful. The delay turns what could have been taken for granted into something treasured. What you must guard against in delay is the temptation to compromise. Abraham and Sarah were promised a child, but when the promise didn't come quickly, they tried to manufacture the answer on their own. That compromise created chaos. God still fulfilled his promise, but the detour caused unnecessary pain. The lesson is this: don't let impatience push you into settling for something less than what God has for you. Trust that his timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with yours. So if you're in a season where things seem delayed, don't give up. Don't assume it means denial. Instead, shift your perspective. Ask yourself, what is God teaching me in this delay? What strength is being built? What character is being refined? What doors are being aligned behind the scenes? Remember, delay is not the end of the story. It's a chapter in the process of your breakthrough. And when the answer finally comes, when the door finally opens, when the breakthrough finally arrives, you'll see clearly that the delay was never denial. It was preparation. It was protections. It was positioning. And you'll be able to say with confidence, God was faithful all along. Waiting is one of the hardest disciplines in the walk of faith, yet it is one of God's most powerful tools for transformation. We often think that the seasons when nothing seems to be happening are wasted, but in reality, those are the moments when God is doing his deepest work. In the waiting, he is shaping you, molding you, refining your heart, and aligning your life with his purpose. The waiting season is not an empty space. It is a sacred space. It is the gap between promise and fulfillment, where God works in ways that are often unseen but always intentional. When God calls you to wait, it is not because he is being cruel or indifferent. It is because he knows that the promise he has spoken over your life requires a certain level of preparation. Sometimes the work God is doing in you is just as important as the work he is doing for you. You might be praying for a promotion, a spouse, a financial breakthrough, or a ministry opportunity, but God is more concerned with who you become in the process than with how quickly you arrive at the outcome. Consider the life of David. He was anointed king as a young shepherd boy, yet it took years before he actually wore the crown. In those years of waiting, God taught David to lead sheep before he allowed him to lead a nation. He trained David's hands for battle in the wilderness before he placed him on the throne. The waiting was not a punishment, it was preparation. Without the waiting, David might have lacked the strength, wisdom, and humility required to rule with God's heart. When God works in the waiting, he is often building resilience. Waiting forces you to confront your impatience and teaches you how to endure. It breaks the addiction to immediate results and replaces it with a steady trust in God's time. This kind of trust cannot be developed in moments of instant gratification. It grows in the soil of persistence and perseverance. In the waiting, you learn that faith is not just believing that God can do something, but believing that He will do it in His way and in His time. Waiting also deepens intimacy with God. In our rush to get to the destination, we can miss the joy of the journey. But waiting slows us down and forces us to lean into His presence. It's in those moments of uncertainty and delay that we learn to listen more closely to His voice, to depend on His Spirit, and to find peace not in circumstances but in Him. Some of the most beautiful revelations of God's character come not in the moment of breakthrough, but in the long nights of waiting when His presence becomes your anchor. The waiting season can also be a season of hidden growth. Just like a seed in the soil, you may not see anything happening on the surface, but beneath the ground, roots are stretching deeper and stronger. God uses the waiting to strengthen your foundation so that when the blessing comes, it doesn't topple you. He's building capacity in you, capacity to handle the responsibility, the pressure, and the influence that will come with the answer to your prayer. Without that capacity, the blessing could overwhelm you instead of empowering you. Sometimes God uses the waiting to strip away things that cannot go with you into your next season. He may be removing toxic relationships, unhealthy habits, or limiting mindsets that would sabotage your future. You may not understand why certain doors are closing or why certain people are walking away, but in hindsight, you'll see that God was pruning you so that you could bear more fruit. The waiting is not just about adding to your life, it's also about subtracting what would hold you back. In the waiting, God often shifts our desires. What you think you want at the beginning of the wait might not be what you truly need when the wait is over. As you walk with Him, your perspective changes and your heart aligns more closely with His. This transformation is critical because sometimes we ask for things that would satisfy us temporarily, but not fulfill us eternally. By the time the wait is over, you may find yourself thanking God for not answering your original prayer the way you wanted Him to. The waiting season also tests your faithfulness. It's easy to praise God when things are going your way, but can you still serve Him with passion when your prayers are met with silence? Can you still be diligent in your responsibilities when you feel overlooked? Waiting reveals whether you are committed to God's plan or just to your own comfort. If you can remain faithful when it seems like nothing is moving, it proves that your devotion is rooted in love, not in circumstances. One of the challenges of waiting is the temptation to rush ahead of God. We see this in the story of Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a child, but when the wait became too long, they decided to take matters into their own hands. The result was Ishmael, a man who was not the fulfillment of God's promise and whose birth led to generations of conflict. The lesson is clear. When we try to manufacture the answer instead of trusting God to deliver it, we create problems we were never meant to carry. Waiting requires discipline to stay still when everything in you wants to move. It's also important to understand that waiting is active, not passive. Waiting on God does not mean doing nothing. It means doing the right things with the right heart while you trust Him for the outcome. It means being faithful in the small tasks, sowing seeds of obedience, and living in expectation. It's about preparing yourself so that when the door does open, you are ready to walk through it fully equipped. And while you wait, the enemy will try to fill your mind with doubt. He'll whisper, if God was going to do it, He would have done it by now. But you must counter those lies with truth. Remind yourself of God's track record. Recall the times He came through for you before, even when it looked impossible. Remember the stories in Scripture where God's timing seemed late but was actually perfect. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and He will not fail you now. The waiting may feel long, but every moment is accounted for in God's plan. When He finally moves, it often happens suddenly, and you realize that all the waiting was worth it. The very thing you thought was delayed will arrive right on time, and you'll see that God was not just preparing the blessing for you, He was preparing you for the blessing. So embrace the waiting season. Don't despise it. Let it teach you, shape you, and draw you closer to. See it for what it is, a divine workshop where the master craftsman is molding you into the person who can carry the promise with strength, wisdom, and grace. And when the day of fulfillment comes, you'll know without a doubt that the waiting was never wasted. It was the place where God worked the most deeply, setting the stage for the breakthrough you've been believing for. There are moments in life when it feels like everything is pushing against you. You take one step forward and something knocks you 2 steps back. You finally start to build momentum and suddenly obstacles appear that you never saw coming. It's frustrating. It's exhausting. But what you might not realize is that the pushback is not meant to destroy you. It's positioning you for something great. The very resistance you are facing is setting you up for a level of impact that you would not have reached without the struggle. Think about an archer with a bow and arrow. The arrow cannot fly forward unless it is first pulled back. The further it is pulled back, the further it will soar. The tension in the string is not there to harm the arrow. It's there to launch it into its purpose. The same is true for your life. That pushback you are feeling is the pull of preparation. God is drawing you back, not to keep you down, but to release you into a destiny you could not step into on your own strength. The pushback positions you because it forces you to adjust your stance. When everything is easy, you can get careless with your footing. But when resistance comes, you learn to plant your feet firmly, to ground yourself in your values, your faith in your purpose. This stability becomes the foundation you will need when greater opportunities arise. If you can stand strong in the pushback, you will be unshakable when the breakthrough comes. Sometimes the pushback is God's way of redirecting you. Maybe you were headed towards something that looked good but wasn't truly aligned with His best for you. The obstacle becomes a divine detour, steering you toward a door you wouldn't have found otherwise. What feels like rejection may actually be redirection. You see a wall, but God sees a turn in the road that leads to a greater destination. Pushback also strengthens your endurance. You can't develop spiritual or emotional muscles without resistance. Just as in physical training, the weight you lift must be heavy enough to challenge you if you want to grow. If you only ever face light opposition, you would never build the resilience required to handle the weight of your calling. Every time you push back against what is pushing against you, you are getting stronger. You are proving to yourself and to the world that you can endure. The opposition you face also reveals your mission's significance. The enemy doesn't waste energy attacking people who aren't going anywhere. If you weren't carrying something valuable, if you weren't on the brink of making an impact, you wouldn't be facing such resistance. The size of your battle is often an indicator of the size of your assignment. So instead of interpreting pushback as a sign that you're off track, start seeing it as confirmation that you're headed in the right direction. One of the greatest gifts of pushback is that it forces you to depend on God in a deeper way. When everything is smooth, it's easy to rely on your own strength, your own plans, and your own abilities. But when resistance comes, you realize that you cannot do it alone. You start leaning into prayer more, seeking His guidance more earnestly, and listening for His voice more closely. The pushback strips away self-reliance and replaces it with God-reliance. This dependence is what will sustain you long after the battle is over. Pushback also clarifies your priorities. When resources, time, and energy are under pressure, you are forced to focus on what truly matters. Distractions fall away because you don't have the luxury to entertain them. The fight you are in forces you to pour your energy into the mission that counts. This laser focus will serve you well when you step into your season of breakthrough, because you will already know how to guard your time and attention from things that don't align with your purpose. There is also a refining process that happens in the pushback. Resistance exposes your weak spot. It shows you where your patience runs thin, where your faith wavers, where your temper flares. It's in these moments that you are given the opportunity to grow, to strengthen the areas that need work. The pushback is not just about external obstacles, it's also about internal transformation. God is not just preparing the path for you, He is preparing you for the path. Many people give up in the pushback because they mistake the pressure for punishment. But pressure is not punishment. It's proof that something is being produced. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Gold is refined in fire. Champions are built in the heat of the fight. If you quit when it gets hard, you rob yourself of the very process that is designed to elevate you. The pushback is not there to stop you. It's there to shape you into someone who can handle what's ahead. Sometimes the pushback comes through people who misunderstand you, criticize you, or even oppose you. This can be especially painful, but it can also be one of the most powerful positioning tools in your journey. Opposition forces you to clarify your convictions and stand firm in your calling, even when it's unpopular. It teaches you to draw your validation from God rather than from the approval of others. When you learn this lesson, you become unstoppable, because no one's opinion can derail your mission. Pushback also builds your testimony. When you reach your breakthrough, people will look at your journey and see the obstacles you overcame. Your story will inspire others who are facing their own battle.
The very resistance that made you want to quit will become the proof that God's hand was on your life all along. You will be able to say, if God brought me through that, He can bring you through anything. There is a strategic advantage in pushback as well. In warfare, retreat is sometimes used to draw the enemy into a vulnerable position. What looks like a setback is actually a setup for victory. In your life, God may allow certain challenges to come so that the enemy overplays his hand, leaving an opening for your breakthrough. What feels like you being pushed back is actually you being strategically positioned for a greater win. To embrace the pushback, you must change your perspective. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what is this preparing me for? When you see resistance as part of your training, rather than as an interruption, you stop resenting it and start using it. You begin to see every obstacle as an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more equipped for the next season. So when the wind is in your face, when the waves are crashing against you, when it feels like every step forward is met with a shove backward, don't despair. Plant your feet, hold your ground, push back with faith, knowing that every ounce of resistance is building your strength and positioning you for impact. You are not being buried, you are being planted. And in due time, what has been pressed down will rise up, stronger and higher than before. The pushback is not the end of your journey, it's the launching pad for your destiny. Every delay, every obstacle, every closed door is part of the positioning process. Trust that God knows exactly where you need to be and when you need to be there. When the moment comes, the arrow will be released, and you will fly further and faster than you ever imagined. And when you look back, you realize that the pushback was not against you. It was working for you all along.
There are times in life when the plans you so carefully crafted begin to unravel before your eyes. You thought you had it all figured out. You mapped the route, calculated the risks, and set your expectations. But then, without warning, things fall apart. Opportunities vanish, relationships shift, doors close. It feels like everything you were building has been dismantled, and you're left standing in the rubble, wondering why God allowed your plans to break. But what you may not realize in that moment is that sometimes your broken plans are not a loss. They're the birthplace of a bigger purpose. We often hold tightly to what we think should happen because we trust our own vision more than we trust God's. We assume that if something looks right to us, it must be right for us. But what if the thing you thought was right was actually too small? What if it was a stepping stone and not the destination? God in His wisdom will sometimes allow your plans to shatter so that He can replace them with something greater than you could imagine. The disappointment you feel today may be the foundation for the destiny you'll walk into tomorrow. When our plans break, our first instinct is to try to fix them. We scramble to put the pieces back together to make things look the way they did before. But broken plans are not meant to be repaired. They're meant to be replaced. God isn't in the business of gluing together your old dreams. He's in the business of giving you new ones. And sometimes the only way to make room for the new is to clear away the old. His plan was to live a quiet life in his father's house, but that plan was destroyed when his own brothers sold him into slavery. From there, his life seemed to unravel. False accusations, prison, betrayal. But through every broken piece, God was weaving a larger story. Joseph's personal plans had to be broken so that he could fulfill a divine purpose, saving an entire nation during famine. If Joseph had clung to his original plan, he never would have stepped into the role God designed for him. The breaking of your plans also reveals what's in your heart. When everything goes according to your expectations, you never have to confront your attachment to your own way of doing things. But when things fall apart, you're faced with a choice. Will you trust God even when you don't understand? Will you surrender your blueprint for your life to the one who sees the whole picture? It's in this place of surrender that bigger purposes are born. Broken plans force you to grow in ways that success never could. Success often reinforces your comfort zone, but brokenness pushes you out of it. It forces you to adapt, to think differently, to take risks you never would have considered. It's uncomfortable, but it's also transformative. The person you become in the process is far more capable, resilient, and wise than the person you were before everything fell apart. There's also a humbling aspect to broken plans. They remind you that you are not in control, and that's a good thing. If everything in your life went exactly as you envisioned, you would never need faith. But when things don't go according to plan, you are reminded that your life is in the hands of a God who sees the end from the beginning. What feels like a setback to you is often a setup in His design. The very disruption you're trying to avoid may be the path to the breakthrough you've been praying for. Sometimes our plans break because they were never truly ours to begin with. They were influenced by the expectations of others. Maybe you pursued a career path because it was what your family wanted. Maybe you stayed in a relationship because you didn't want to disappoint someone. Maybe you built a life around an image you thought you had to uphold. When God allows those plans to crumble, it's His way of setting you free from living someone else's story so that you can finally live your own. Broken plans can also serve as protection. We think of them as losses, but sometimes God is simply removing something that would have harmed us if it had continued. That business deal that fell through might have led to financial ruin. That relationship that ended might have saved you years of heartache. That opportunity you missed might have been a trap in disguise. What you see as rejection is often God's redirection, keeping you on the path to His best for you. Another powerful truth is that broken plans make space for divine surprises. We like predictability, but God often works in the unexpected. The moment your carefully laid plans crumble is the moment you become open to possibilities you never would have considered. It's in the unfamiliar territory that you meet people you never would have met, discover talents you didn't know you had, and encounter opportunities that weren't even on your radar. In the middle of it, broken plans don't feel like a gift. They feel like loss, and it's okay to grieve that loss. It's okay to acknowledge the pain and disappointment, but after you've wept, after you've processed, you have to choose to lift your head and ask, "What now, Lord?" Because the sooner you look for the purpose in the pain, the sooner you'll see that this breaking is not the end, it's the beginning of something greater. Sometimes the bigger purpose is not about what you achieve, but about who you become in the process. The brokenness may not immediately lead to success in the way the world defines it, but it may lead to deeper compassion, stronger faith, and greater wisdom. Those qualities will not only shape your future, but also impact everyone you influence. The ripple effect of your transformation will reach farther than any plan you could have drawn up on your own. When your plans break, the enemy will try to convince you that you failed, that your best days are behind you, and that you've missed your chance. But the truth is, broken plans often mean God is upgrading your destiny. He's not taking you backward. He's preparing to take you further than you thought possible. The breaking is not evidence of abandonment. It's evidence of His involvement. So when your plans collapse, resist the urge to panic or cling to what's familiar. Instead, lean into the unknown with trust. Say to yourself, if God allowed this to fall apart, it's because He has something better in mind. And then choose to believe that every piece of the wreckage is going to be used for your good. Looking back, you'll realize that the moment your plans broke was the moment your real life began. The setback you dreaded became the turning point that led you to your calling. The disappointment you thought would destroy you actually positioned you for destiny. And you'll see that the breaking was not just about losing something, it was about making room for something bigger, something better, and something eternal. Faith has a way of flipping the narrative. Where most people see a wall, faith sees a doorway. Where most people see an obstacle, faith sees an opportunity in disguise. Life will always bring you moments where the road seems blocked, where the challenge feels too great, and where your resources seem too small. In those moments, your natural instinct may be to shrink back, to retreat, to label the situation as impossible. But faith doesn't look at the size of the obstacle, it looks at the size of the God who stands with you. And when you choose to view your challenges through the lens of faith, you begin to see that obstacles are not stop signs, they are invitations to step into something greater. Faith starts where sight ends. As long as you can see the path, as long as everything is clear and easy, you don't need faith, you just need a plan. But when the road disappears, when the door slams shut, when the resources dry up, that's when faith becomes necessary.
It's in the unknown that faith stretches its wing. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Faith asks, how is God going to use this for me? That single shift in perspective transforms the way you respond to life's difficulties. When you have faith, you stop allowing obstacles to define your potential. People without faith will measure their ability to move forward based on their current circumstances. If the bank account is low, they stop. If the people around them don't believe, they give up. If the path is blocked, they turn around. But faith refuses to be limited by what's visible. Faith says, if God called me to this, there must be a way through it, even if I can't see it yet. Think about David standing in front of Goliath. Everyone else saw a giant too big to fight. David saw a target too big to miss. The same obstacle was in front of them all, but faith changed the way David interpreted the challenge. His confidence wasn't in his own strength, but in the God who had delivered him before and would deliver him again. That's the power of faith. It changes your vision. It enables you to see opportunities where others see only dead ends. The truth is, many of life's greatest breakthroughs are disguised as problems. The business that you eventually build might be born from the frustration of losing your job. The ministry that changes lives might start because of the pain you once endured. The invention that impacts millions might come from the struggle of trying to solve a personal challenge. Without the obstacle, you would never have been forced to think differently, to stretch your creativity, to tap into courage you didn't know you had. Faith doesn't just survive the obstacle, it transforms it into the very thing that propels you forward. This is why the enemy tries so hard to use obstacles to intimidate you, because he knows that if you approach them with faith, they will work against him. He knows that if you see through the eyes of faith, what he meant for harm will be turned into good. That's why you'll face resistance right before your breakthrough. The pressure isn't proof that you're failing, it's proof that you're close to something valuable. And faith is what keeps you moving forward when fear says turn back. Faith also removes the limits of your own understanding. There will be situations in life where you simply cannot figure out the solution. You won't have the experience, the resources, or the connections. That's when faith becomes your bridge between where you are and where you're called to be. Faith says, I don't know how, but I know who. It trusts that God is not surprised by your obstacle and has already prepared a way for you to overcome it. When you begin to live like this, obstacles stop feeling like personal attacks and start feeling like opportunities for God to show his power. Every time you face something impossible and watch God make a way, your faith grows stronger. You begin to approach new challenges with the expectation that something good is going to come from it. That expectation creates boldness. You stop being afraid of hard situations and start seeking out opportunities to trust God more. One of the most powerful things faith does is shift your focus from what's wrong to what could be right. Without faith, you stare at the obstacle and magnify it until it feels unmovable. With faith, you magnify God instead, and suddenly the obstacle doesn't look so big anymore. You begin to imagine the possibilities on the other side. That imagination fuels action. You start taking steps towards solutions instead of standing still in fear. Faith also brings creativity. Obstacles often require unconventional thinking, and faith frees you from the box of normal. It pushes you to consider new strategies, to ask for help, to explore paths you never would have noticed. Some of the greatest innovations in history came because someone faced an obstacle and chose to believe there was a way forward. Faith gives you the courage to experiment, to try again, to keep pressing until the breakthrough comes. It's important to understand that faith doesn't always remove the obstacle instantly. Sometimes God will part the sea for you to walk through, and other times he'll give you the strength to climb the mountain. Either way, the obstacle will not defeat. Faith teaches you to persevere, to keep showing up, to keep believing even when the circumstances are slow to change. And in that perseverance, you are being prepared for bigger responsibilities and greater blessings. There's also a refining process in facing obstacles with faith. It burns away doubt, strips off pride, and strengthens your trust in God. When you come through the other side, you're not just victorious, you're transformed. You carry a testimony that inspires others, and you become living proof that what seemed impossible is possible with God. Faith teaches you to reframe failure as feedback. Even if your first attempt to overcome the obstacle doesn't work, faith refuses to see it as the end. Instead, it says, I've learned something valuable here, and now I'm better prepared for the next. That mindset keeps you from quitting too soon. It keeps you in the game long enough to see the opportunity that the obstacle was hiding all along. If you look back at your life, you'll probably find that some of your most meaningful achievements and deepest growth moments came out of seasons you thought were setbacks. Faith had a way of turning those seasons into stepping stones. The same will be true for the obstacles you face now. What feels like resistance today may be the very thing that strengthens you for the next level of your calling. So the next time you're staring at something that looks too big to handle, don't let fear be the loudest voice in the room. Let faith speak loud. Remind yourself that the obstacle is not there to stop you. It's there to shape you, to position you, and to reveal the opportunity that you couldn't see before. Trust that God's perspective is bigger than yours, and that He's already working all things together for your good. In the end, faith doesn't just help you overcome the obstacle, it makes you grateful for it, because once you see how it pushed you into new territory, forced you to grow, and led you to blessings you never imagined, you'll realize the obstacle wasn't a curse at all. It was a gift in disguise, an opportunity for God to show Himself strong, and a reminder that nothing can stand in the way of a heart that refuses to stop believing. Breakthrough always follows the breaking point, but that truth is often hard to grasp in the moment of pain. The breaking point is that place where you feel like you can't take one more step, one more disappointment, one more closed door. It's where your strength runs out, your options dry up, and your hope feels like it's slipping through your finger. The breaking point is uncomfortable, exhausting, and sometimes humiliating. It makes you question your purpose, your faith, and even your worth. But in the kingdom of God, the breaking point isn't the end, it's the turning point. It's the moment when everything is being positioned for the shift that will carry you into your breakthrough. God often works in a way that looks backwards to us. We think the path to victory should be straight, smooth, and upward. But more often than not, He allows us to be pressed, stretched, and pushed beyond our limits so that we can grow into the person who can handle the victory. Without the breaking point, the breakthrough wouldn't mean as much, and it certainly wouldn't prepare you for the responsibilities that come with it. That's why in almost every great story, biblical or otherwise, there's a moment where the hero feels crushed, abandoned, or defeated right before the greatest turn of events. When you're at the breaking point, it's easy to believe the lie that you've missed your moment or that God has forgotten you. The enemy wants you to quit right there because he knows what's on the other side. He knows that if you hold on just a little longer, you'll step into a victory that will silence every lie, heal every wound, and redeem every loss. That's why the pressure is so intense right before the breakthrough, because the battle is almost over. It's the same principle as a woman in labor. The contractions are most painful right before the baby is born. That's not a sign to give up, it's a sign to push. The breaking point forces you to confront the limits of your own strength. You realize that sheer willpower won't carry you through, that your own strategies have run their course. It's in that moment of surrender that God steps in. He waits until you've exhausted all the things you've been leaning on so that you'll lean entirely on Him. That's when the supernatural power shows up, when you've reached the end of yourself. Paul said it best, "When I am weak, then I am strong." Weakness is the doorway through which God's strength floods in, and the breaking point is the threshold. Another thing the breaking point does is strip away distractions. When you're comfortable, you can afford to entertain things that don't really matter. But when you're pressed to the edge, you get laser focused on what's essential. The pain of the breaking point clarifies your priority. It makes you let go of old habits, old relationships, and old mindsets that can't go with you into the next season. Breakthrough doesn't just require a new opportunity, it requires a new you. And the breaking point is where that transformation happens. It's also at the breaking point that your faith is most tested. Faith is easy when everything is going your way. But when you're praying and nothing seems to change, when you're obeying and still facing setbacks, that's when faith becomes real. Do you still believe God's promises when your circumstances scream the opposite? Do you still trust His timing when every part of you wants to rush ahead? The breaking point forces you to answer those questions, and your answers shape the foundation of your breakthrough. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history came after moments that looked like total failure. Joseph's breakthrough into leadership came after years in prison. Moses' breakthrough as a deliverer came after decades in the wilderness. Even Jesus' resurrection, the ultimate breakthrough, came after the cross, which looked like complete defeat. In each case, the breaking point was necessary to position them for the fullness of their calling. Without the breaking point, there would have been no break. The breaking point is also a place of deep humility. When you've been stripped of every illusion of control, you learn to depend on God in a way you never have before, and that dependence becomes your strength. When your breakthrough comes, you'll know without a doubt that it wasn't your own ability that made it happen. It was His grace, His mercy, and His power. That humility not only sustains your breakthrough, but also protects you from pride and keeps you grounded as God elevates you. The beauty of the breaking point is that it doesn't last forever. It may feel like an endless night, but dawn is always coming. Your job in that season is not to figure out the timing, but to remain faithful. Keep showing up. Keep praying, keep declaring God's promises over your life. The pressure you're feeling isn't permanent, it's purposeful. It's shaping you, preparing you, and aligning you for the moment when the doors swing wide and you step into everything God has for you. When the breakthrough finally comes, you'll look back on the breaking point with a different perspective. What once felt like punishment will reveal itself as preparation. You'll see how every delay was protecting you, how every closed door was redirecting you, and how every tear watered the soil for your future harvest. The breaking point was never meant to break you permanently. It was meant to break off the things that would have held you. In the natural, breaking something usually means destroying it. But in God's hands, breaking is about multiplying. Just as bread had to be broken before it could feed the multitude, sometimes you have to be broken before your life can have its greatest impact. Your testimony after the breaking point will feed others. Your resilience will inspire them. Your breakthrough will become a roadmap for someone else who's walking through their own midnight hour. So if you're at your breaking point today, don't give up. You're closer to your breakthrough than you realize. The intensity of your struggle is evidence of the greatness of what's on the other side. This isn't the end, it's the tipping point. And if you can hold on, if you can push through just a little longer, you'll step into a victory so sweet, so complete, that it will make every tear, every sleepless night, and every moment of doubt worth it. Breakthrough always follows the breaking, and when it comes, it will not only change your circumstances, it will change you. You'll walk differently, you'll speak differently, you'll believe differently, because you'll know deep down in your soul that God can be trusted even in the darkest moments, and that every breaking point is simply the stage being set for His glory to shine through your life in ways you could never have imagined. I came to tell somebody today, stop crying over what you lost. Stop pacing over what didn't work. Stop replaying the pain like it's the whole story. You are standing in the middle of a chapter that looks like defeat, but the author of your life has already written the ending, and it ends in victory. Every tear you cried, every night you stayed awake wondering why, every door that slammed in your face, it was all part of a divine positioning. God was not ignoring you, He was aligning you. He was pulling you back like an arrow, stretching you in ways that hurt, but preparing to release you into a destiny you couldn't have reached on your own. Don't let the setback make you settle. Don't let the delay make you doubt. This is not the end, this is the setup. And when God sets you up, no devil in hell can tear it down. Your breakthrough is closer than your fear wants you to believe. So lift your head, square your shoulder, plant your feet, and declare over your life, this setback will not define me, it will refine me. This delay will not destroy me, it will deliver me. This pain will not break me, it will break me open for the blessing that's on the way. Because the God who started this good work in you is faithful to finish it. And when your breakthrough comes, you won't just walk into it, you'll run into it with the confidence of someone who knows this was all part of the plan from the very beginning.